Today, we've got here from Unity, Amandine Mairiaux-Jones, and she's going to talk to you about her journey to Unity and why you should step outside of your comfort zone. So over to you.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? Cool. All right, that's good. So today, first let me introduce myself. So I'm Amandine Mairiaux-Jones. I'm a technical producer at Unity in Stratford-upon-Avon, so that's in the Midlands, for people who are not familiar with this town. And during this talk, I'm going to be talking about my journey to Unity. So how did I actually come about working for Unity? Started in April 2018. And really the overarching theme of my presentation is why you should be stepping outside of your comfort zone, especially when it comes to your work life. Many of you here might be asking yourself questions. What are you going to do next? What is your path? And really, through this presentation, I want to encourage you to always take risks. And whenever you come to difficult times in your career life, or even just if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, I want you guys to ask yourself, where should I be going next? And how comfortable am I feeling right now? Yes, and this is a quote that I think you might know already, but I think it's very powerful, and it sums up perfectly what I'm about to talk right now, is that comfort zone is a beautiful place, but when it comes to your career, there's not much growth that happens when you feel that you're right in your comfort zone. So to give you a bit of an overview of the talk today, first I'll be talking about my background. So how did I actually come to work in the video game industry, and why am I in the UK? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm not British. And if you've not noticed, thank you very much. And then after that, I'll move on to opportunities abroad. So why am I here? How did I get to start in production? And then finally, life at Unity, so what I'm doing right now and how it is being an employee for Unity Technologies. And the last section really is the takeaway. So if you fell asleep during my talk, try and wake up for the takeaways. And then you'll probably remember everything I want you to remember will be the takeaway. There'll be 3 key points, but I think they're very important going forward in your career. And during each section, I will be giving you a comfort zone rating. So where was I at in my comfort zone at this point in time? So let's jump in. So background. Now you might be wondering, who's that girl? This is me, age of 1. I know, I'm already a style icon at that age. So I had a clear path, and it wasn't in fashion, if you might wonder. But I actually fell in love with languages from a very young age. I had an incredible teacher when I was about 10. She was passionate about English, and she actually got an English person to come to us and to speak about, to just give us an intro on English and just do, like little songs like Head, Shoulders, Knees and Toes, which were really incredibly exciting for a 10-year-old me. And so I just went on to do the equivalent of A-levels in France with a focus on languages. So that was English and Spanish. And then naturally after that, I went to university. I did a bachelor's degree in foreign languages. Again, same languages, English and Spanish. And then I naturally moved on to do a master's degree in translation and project management. So all that was in France. So as part of my master's degree, which was 2 years long, every year we had internships that we had to do. So my first year, I went to Paris. I did an internship which lasted for 6 months as a translator. And then the second year, I actually managed to join Ubisoft Paris. And yes, this is me with a giant rabbit, as a localization project manager. Now, who in the room knows what localization is about? Right, good. Not a few people, not a lot of people. Okay, so translation is translating from English to French, right? So translating a language. Localization is deeper than that. So when you work in the video game industry, you want the players to be completely immersed in their experience. And what that means is they need to feel that the text, that everything they're hearing was actually made for them, was written in their language. So what we do is localization is all about adapting a translation to fit a local culture. So let's say that in a game, you'd have a reference to Fawlty Towers, for example. Now, to most of you, that makes you smile. For most French people, they would have no clue what you're talking about. So you try and find, when you're localizing, you would try and find a similar example of a comedy around the 80s, which is a similar theme. And that would feel people more like they can relate better with the experience. So I stayed at Ubisoft for 6 months, and it was brilliant. I got to work on a lot of really cool games. I did the localization for Just Dance. I participated in the Raving Rabbids title. I also did some work on Ghost Recon Future Soldier, for those of you who are familiar with that title. And then I realized most of my uni friends had studied abroad and I hadn't. Now that was a personal choice, right? I didn't feel comfortable doing that. But I would always promise myself that when I finished university, I'd try and I would apply for jobs abroad and see what happened. And so I did. And I got a job in the UK. Which is what takes me to my next slide, opportunities abroad. Now, this is broken. Interesting. This is broken. Brilliant. So just let me talk. So opportunities abroad. So I applied, got a job in the UK, and I went on to work for Codemasters. Don't know if you're familiar with Codemasters. They're quite a big company in the Midlands. They've done a lot of racing titles, directly in competition to the Playground games you've seen before. And actually, fun fact, I don't know if you know, but the Playground game studio was created from people that left Codemasters and set up their own studios. And my slides are definitely very good. There we are. Cool, this is working. Right, so yeah, working at Codemasters, I worked on a few titles. Not bad, hey? So I was there for 3 years, and I was the localization project manager. And there were only 2 people in the localization department, me and my boss. And Codemasters is about, well, at the time was about 400 employees strong, and we had a lot going on, and only 2 people to actually do the job. And that was very challenging. And I stayed there for 3 years, and I did the same job, different games, right? And it was cozy. It wasn't cozy at first. It was quite challenging to move abroad. But after 3 years, I knew how to do the job. I knew what was coming. And I just felt very comfortable. So rating at the time, comfort zone 1, Amandine 1, right? It's 0-0. So at this point, I'm thinking, right, there's only 2 people in the department, me and my boss. My boss isn't going anywhere anytime soon. He's very much enjoying the work. And so I couldn't see where I could move within Codemasters. I tried, but I wasn't really given any kind of real tips of where I could go. So I did something that any adults would do at this point. I quit. Now, I know what you're thinking. You might be thinking, wait a minute, I thought this was supposed to be a talk by someone who knows what they're doing, not someone who's just going to quit randomly when they get a bit stuck. And I want to show you this cartoon, which I think is very good representation of what's ahead of you guys after university. Now, you might think that this is going to be a linear progression, that you're going to be on a bike, everything's going to go well, you're slightly going to climb your way up, and everything will work out. And maybe it will for some of you. For most of us, right, normal people, reality is looking more like this. You're going to hit some rocks. You're going to have some setbacks. You're going to have to do some climbing at times. But eventually, you will get to where you wanted to go. So what happens next? Because I've quit, right? Well, I'm happy to say that if anyone's ever told you that partying is not very good for your career, it's a lie. Because I actually went on to a birthday party from a friend. That friend happened to be working at a game studio in the area where I was based, in Leamington. And those people had an office manager, and she was leaving at the time, and they hadn't found a replacement. And so I put myself forward, and it was only supposed to be a matter of a few months of tying them over until they found someone else. But really, that's what started my career in production. So I started as an office manager at Exient. Axiom was a small video game company focusing on mobile games. They did work on some big titles though, so they worked on with Rovio on Angry Birds Transformers and Angry Birds Go, which you might have heard about. And I loved being an office manager. It wasn't really what I had learned to do at school, but a lot of the skills I had as a project manager applied to an office manager. So I just looked after the studio like it was my little project. I looked after people, and I just made sure that everyone had anything they needed. The problem is, I become very comfortable very quickly. It wasn't very challenging, and after 6 months, I was starting to think, this is a bit too comfy again. And so I took a bit of a leap, and I joined the dev team as an associate producer. Now, this didn't happen like from one day to the other. I didn't just wake up one day and said, you know what, I want to be in production, just give me my shot. But what I did was I left myself open to new opportunities, and I tried to help as much as I could. So actually, my localization knowledge came in really handy, and I just went out of my way to help the teams with that knowledge, that nobody was doing localization at Axiom. Again, it was a very small studio, about 50 people strong. And so I just, helped them out. And slowly, I just got more and more involved to the point where they said, well, there's an opening in production. Would you like to do that? And so I did. Nice. This is not showing, yes. And these are the games that I actually worked on. I actually went from being an office manager to being an associate producer and not having a producer to report to, so I was the only production person on those titles and working on that. Now that was a very, very steep learning curve. I'd been used to using my knowledge, so what I learned from university, in my daily life at work. And actually I went on to do something that I had no training for, and that was terrifying. But I'm winning, right? I'm defeating my comfort zone. I'm winning because I'm ready to challenge myself, and I'm doing something that's making me incredibly uncomfortable. And actually, which led me to become a producer. Now, I didn't stay at Axiom. I was an associate producer at Axiom for about 9 months. And then again, just like at Codemasters, there wasn't really anywhere for me to go. The producers that were there were very settled in their role. There was really no progression. And once I'd done those games for about 9 months, because they were already live, there wasn't really anything I could learn from that. So I got offered a job at another studio in Warwick, so not very far from Leamington Spa, which was called Full Fat Games. Now, Full Fat was, again, a mobile game studio. So really what's important to know about mobile project is at Full Fat, it was very fast turnarounds. So we worked on projects for about 8 weeks from conception to actually submitting it to Apple and Android. I don't know if you guys have some kind of experience, but that's incredibly fast. And our teams were about 7, 8 people strong. I know you're all making faces like, oh my God. Yeah, there was a very small margin for error. We had to know exactly what we were doing when we were doing it. And there was a lot of overtime. And it was a very steep learning curve. For me, I went on to not having done a project from beginning to end, to having done 3 or 4 projects within about 4 months. So that was incredible, but that was very hard. Now the problem is that came with difficulties. I really enjoy the work. I enjoy being a producer. That's why I'm a producer. But I really struggled to fit in with the studio culture, actually. And that didn't make me feel empowered. And I kept thinking, there must be something wrong with me. I kept trying to change myself to fit the mold within that company. And they say you need to find a tribe with your vibe. And that wasn't my tribe, and it wasn't my vibe. But at this point, you might be thinking, oh, she's going to quit again. And I would have, but my comfort zone was winning because my wife was pregnant, and I just didn't feel like I could move. You don't want to change jobs when you feel like there's so much resting upon you. So I just thought, well, that's all right, I'm just going to make this work and see what happens. And yeah, I had a lot of self-blame monologue. This is my fault, I should fit in, why am I not fitting in? But then, as I was kind of giving up and thinking, okay, I'm going to be a producer, this happened. So this is a message from Ben, and Ben is our lead recruiter at Unity Technologies in the UK. And now, if you're wondering what my reaction was at this point, it was about like that. So yeah, it just doesn't get old. I just love that GIF. So recruitment process at Unity was very tricky. It was 5 interviews over more than 2 months. And then finally, after having 5 interviews, 2 dinners, 4 taxi ride, I joined Unity in April 2018. And it was a real challenge because I don't know what your image is of Unity, but when I thought about Unity, I thought about engineers in a room, all very smart. I didn't think about a producer with no engineering experience, not being that technical, or at least I didn't think I was. And I just thought, how am I gonna fit in? But that meant that I was very much outside of my comfort zone again. I was pushing myself, and I really wanted to learn. I wanted to do the best that I could for this company. And there was a lot to learn. It's definitely my hardest challenge yet. If you remember, I started in April 2018. My son was born in July 2018. So in the first 3 months that I actually worked at Unity, I actually had to take some parental leave and go off and not having even really settled. But you know what? I had an amazing support network at Unity, and everybody made me feel like this was okay. It was okay to not really know what you're doing, to feel a bit lost, because Unity is a huge company. We've grown very quickly from being, I think about 5 years ago, there was about 500 employees. These days, we're about 1,800 worldwide. We've got more than 20 offices around the world. So it takes a while to get to know everyone, and still now I don't know everyone, but I feel more settled. And yeah, this is my proudest moment yet. So this takes me to present day at Unity, really. So what are we about? And we live and breathe by 3 principles at Unity. The first one is democratized development. Now, if you guys, you're all a bit young, I feel really old, but I don't know if you remember, but there was a time where actually making a game, having a game engine was a really expensive thing to do. And you couldn't really do that if you were just by yourself in your bedroom and wanted to have a go and make a little game for yourself. And this is one of our key missions, was to enable everyone to be creators, enable everyone to be making a game, have a go and see what happens. And then that came with solving hard problems. Now, it's very tricky to make it possible for someone in their bedroom to make a game, but also provide the right tools for a huge studio to be making a game simultaneously. And that's one of the really hard problems that we're having to solve at the moment. And last but not least, enable success. Again, we want to give you the best shot at being successful. We want to be supporting people in creating games and making a living out of it. And this is really something that resonates within us every day, and it guides everything that we do. And, jumped the gun there. And so, how does my mission come into our mission? Now, I'm a technical producer, and my team is very new. My team was created when I joined Unity, and we're called the Platforms Performance Team. It's a very wordy term to actually describe a team that's been created to have for sole focus optimizing and improving the performance of the engine for our users. And that's a huge problem, and that's a very hard problem to solve, because our users will be publishing games on very low-end Android devices all the way up to very high-end PC setups. So how do we make that work? How do we give the same performance to people on low-end Android devices and people playing on PC, right? Again, hard problem to solve. And these are the actual number of platforms we currently support. It's quite a lot, right? And it's very tricky, it's very hard, and we've acknowledged that we don't have all the right tools in place at the moment to actually track performance. We've been very good, we have an amazing system to catch any sort of functionality issues within the engine, but actually, how do we catch performance regressions? That's very complicated to do. You know, we are 600 engineers strong, and those people are making changes every day to our code base. And we have to keep track of every single one of those changes and make sure that the performance of the engine keeps being as good as it was before. And that's very tricky, but I'm very lucky to be doing it with a great tribe, with my vibe, right? This time around, it's the right people. So I feel like I've flown in a little bit, but this is what I do. Our team is about 6 people in Stratford-upon-Avon, and then we've got about 4 or 5 people remotely working from different Unity offices in the different platforms group. So we've got an engineer from the desktop team in Bellevue, we've got an engineer from the mobile team who are in Lithuania, we've got people from Stockholm, and it's great. It's just working with all those different people every day. And so we're coming towards the end of the talk already. I know it's gone so fast. And we're going to be talking about the key points I was telling you about. So now, guys, is the time to wake up and listen about what I'm going to say, because this is important, right? So the first thing I want you guys to remember going forward in your careers, it's okay to feel uncomfortable. You should feel uncomfortable at times. And it was something that the previous speaker mentioned and said, you know, I felt very uncomfortable. And I said to the guys, I said, he's making my job easy here. So embrace discomfort. It's good for you. It's good to feel like you're not quite sure what you're doing, that you don't quite have it all sorted. It means that you're not big-headed. It means that you're keen to learn still. And you should always feel like you're learning throughout your career. And then the second one, which is so important, please trust your instinct. If you don't feel like you belong somewhere, if something doesn't feel right, then just don't stick at it for the sole reason of not wanting to look stupid. If you've tried, if you've been there for a few months and it still doesn't sit right with you, do something about it. Step outside your comfort zone. It will not lead you astray. It will just, it'll be worth it. And keep moving. Keep moving. Even if you hit rocks like we've seen in that little cartoon, just keep at it. It's all going to be fine, right? I'm an example that it is going to be fine no matter what happens. And so this talk was very much outside of my comfort zone. I've not really done any public speaking before. And when our kind recruiter who's downstairs asked me, do you want to do a talk? I was like, no. Thank you very much. But actually, I thought back to a research professor that I absolutely love. And she's brilliant, and she's done TED Talks. And if you haven't watched them, I recommend you go on TED Talks and watch them, because they're so important. And she's really guided me through my career to make choices. Her name is Brené Brown. You might have heard about her. She's done talks about vulnerability and the power of being vulnerable in what you do every day. And she's got something really cool to say about comfort zone. And I wanted to share that quote with you today as the final point in my talk. And Brené Brown says, choose courage over comfort, choose whole hearts over armor, and choose the great adventure of being brave and afraid at the exact same time. This is it.
Okay, thank you very much, Amandine. If you've got any questions for the guys at Unity, they do have a store set up downstairs, so go and have a talk to those. But yeah,
I'll be downstairs as well, so thank you.